All right, my friends, we are back with Yamaha. We're going to be talking about the Yamaha NS series loudspeakers, including a giveaway of the NS-800 bookshelf speakers. That's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. Hey folks, I'm Gene Delasella with Audiohawks. We have Phil Shea in the house. How you doing, Phil?
Gene, I am doing awesome today. It's always good being
Awesome.
here. It's always good being here with you, talking hi-fi.
Happy New Year to you, Phil. Happy
You
New
too.
Year.
You
Yeah,
too.
I'm glad that we're kicking off the new year with another Yamaha contest. So last month we gave away an RN 1000 receiver, and I
Nice.
think the winner is going to be posted on the 16th, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's when we have to wait. The way the rules are is we have to wait for all the mail-in ballots to show up. We have to, it's weird the way the laws written out here in California, even though it's an online sweepstakes. Once you close the sweepstakes, you got to wait 2 weeks for any mail-in ballots to show up. And of course, there is no mail-in ballots, but whatever.
I got you. Well, we will announce the winner on that. But right now, we put a link in the video description below where Yamaha's giving away a pair of NS-800s, the bookshelf NS-800As. Gorgeous piano black finish. You can enter that contest with the links below if you're in the United States. So please check that out. I wanted Phil to give a little overview on the 800s and the 2000s. We did a video with Kumasawa-san about 1.5 years ago.
Yeah.
I got to hear the speakers. I got to hear the electronics. I love the 2000 series, love the 5000 series electronics, love the NS 5000 speakers.
Oh, yeah.
You know, that was based on an iconic design from what, the NS 1000s years ago?
1000 M's, yeah.
Yeah, the first beryllium drivers, right?
Yeah.
So let's talk about these speakers because we have them in for review. You're going to see a lot of coverage of Yamaha speakers in the next month or two. We've got Shane Lee did a video review of the 2000s. James Larson just sent me a 7,500 word review, which I have to read before it goes online. So we've got measurements, we've got all of that. And we're going to do a little comparison of the bookshelf versus the tower, which is the right one for you. Cool. So we're going to have a lot of coverage of that. But I said, why not kick off this whole campaign with a giveaway? Get people excited about it. So Phil, why don't you give us a rundown? I have a PowerPoint here and just kind of give us a rundown of the speakers to educate people on them.
Yeah, so we're kind of going to focus on the 800. These are the bookshelves. But we'll talk about the whole the background of Yamaha speakers and why we're here talking hi-fi again with you, and it's pretty awesome.
All right. Is there slides on this or no?
Yeah, there we go.
Oh, okay.
Just got to find the right button. Okay, so Yamaha and hi-fi. So Yamaha, we just finished celebrating our 70th anniversary of hi-fi, high fidelity audio. You know, we're a musical instrument company, obviously. So we started out with reed organs and then pianos. But in the 20s, we developed a phonograph, a crank phonograph. Then we did our first electric phonograph in the 40s. What is really a cool trivia answer is the hi-fi player of 1954. This was 70 years ago, this last year. This is the world's first product with the term hi-fi. This is what we call this our Yamaha hi-fi player. It was a 4-watt mono turntable. It is. And that's what put it on that. So until this time, no one in the world had used the term hi-fi for a piece of electronics. Now there was hi-fi records, LPs and stuff, which were mono at the time. Stereo hadn't even been introduced yet. But it's just kind of a cool trivia thing that Yamaha just happened to be the first company to brand the term hi-fi on a product. And that was 70 years ago. And then more recently in this last couple of years, we launched the 5000 series in 2019. That was an 8-year project developing that. That's our flagship electronics. And Gene, I know you got some videos on there
Oh yeah.
On your channel from when Kumazawa was out visiting, and we got to show that stuff off. But like everything that Yamaha does, and we do this fairly often, every 5-6 years, we'll find a category. In this case, it's hi-fi, 2-channel listening, and then we'll take our team of our best and most promising engineers, and we cut them loose on it. And we say, hey, we want an amplifier, we want a preamp, and we want a set of speakers. There's no budget, so you don't have to come down within, underneath this price point right here. We just want you to make the best possible product that Yamaha is capable of doing. And there's not really a hard deadline on when that gets done. And we spend the money. The engineers love getting on these projects because now they don't have, the hardest job is to make a $250 stereo receiver, trying to make it sound good and get all the pieces in there and all that stuff. But if you kind of have an unlimited budget as an engineer, that's, it's your turn to go nuts.
Well, the 2000s just crafted meticulously, man. It's just beautiful piece of art, I think.
Yeah, and that all came from the 5000 series. And we spent 8 years developing the 5000 series, but with the intention of all the patents that we developed for that project.
One thing I love about that, Phil, is even though it's a 90-watt a channel receiver, which doesn't sound like a lot of power, it just plays so stable at 4 ohms, at 2 ohms. I never
did 2 ohm tests with that.
I drove a pair of really difficult, inefficient Arendelle speakers, the Bookshelf speakers that they made, fabulous speakers at 1528s, and they need a lot of power. And I never was craving power with the 2000 receiver. It just drove them really well. It opened my eyes to, the measurements do play a role, but also the stability of the platform, platform that has a really stable power supply, which I thought was regulated because it was so stable.
Yeah, it was so big, it wouldn't budge. You couldn't
it wouldn't budge.
Yeah. And that's you bring that up, and that's kind of the difference between a musical instrument company developing products versus an electronics company. Obviously we're musical instrument. 1 in 4 musical instruments in the world sold today is a Yamaha branded musical instrument. So obviously that's corporate focus is music. But it's all aspects of music, the music creation, music production, music recreation, with the home audio gear and stuff like that. But we build the grand pianos, we build the saxophones, we build the world-class drum kits. We know what they sound like. And so when we play a recording of those back through our electronics, we built the instrument so we know what it's supposed to sound like. And then we can reproduce that with our electronics. So yeah, that's why you're hearing stuff. And so, like you said, it's only 90 watts, and you say, oh, why don't we just like add a couple windings to it? It's easily could be a 120 watt receiver, but we're not shooting for specs. The engineer's not going for specs. It's purely sound quality. Every decision is based on sound quality. Okay. So we talked a little bit about the electronics last month. So now let's talk about the speakers. This is the NS series speakers that we're going to talk about. And if you're not familiar with Yamaha loudspeakers, Gene, here's the NS-1000Ms that you mentioned. Beryllium. Yamaha developed the method for forming beryllium metal. There's a few companies that still use it today. One problem with beryllium, well, 2 problems. One is it's very poisonous, so it's not good to be using in processing industrially. The thing with beryllium, you see in these NS-1000s, we have a beryllium tweeter, a beryllium mid-range, but look at our woofer. Our woofer is a paper cone, 12-inch woofer. There's no way to make that metal, that beryllium is too brittle to scale it up to the same size. So we have 2 different types of material for the speaker drivers. We have paper for the woofer and then beryllium for mid and tweet. Now, beryllium sounds awesome, but when you try to do a full spectrum, you're going through different materials. So it's a lot harder to do. And then I think a lot of your listeners and viewers are going to be familiar with these, the NS-10Ms. These were
very polarizing speaker.
But you know what? You still see it today. If you look on a YouTube video and someone is in a recording studio, guess what? There's a pair of these sitting on top of the mixing console.
Sure.
It's funny. I mean, we produced these for what, 23 years or something like that. And then in 2007, finally, we won a Grammy for these speakers. We had discontinued them, but they're so iconic. It's a must-have piece of equipment for the recording industry. So it's for our contribution, technical contribution to the industry for a pair of speakers. That's kind of cool. Okay, then we talked about the 5,000 speakers. These were developed again. These are the ones you like a lot. And we're going to talk about some of these patented technologies because we're using the patented technology. These are a $15,000 pair of speakers, just for reference. We spent 8 years developing it. One of the things that we developed for this was how to manipulate a material called Xylon. You've heard of nylon and rayon, man-made fibers. Xylon is like the strongest man-made fiber that there is. A 1.5 millimeter cord of Xylon can lift a ton. That's how strong it is. And it's used in aerospace, and you see some of the stuff F1 and stuff like that. It's fireproof, so it's used on heat shields and things like that for spacecraft coming back in. But one of the things that why we developed the technique to make speakers out of Xylon for that 5,000 series. And why we chose to do that is very, very similar sonic signature as beryllium. We've been looking for a replacement for beryllium speakers for 45 years, almost 50 years right now. And finally, we found something with this Xylon. Again, the 5,000 series flagship product, and what we do with flagship products and technologies is eventually we try to trickle those down. And that's why we're here today. We're going to talk about the NS series. Now, there's 3 different models: the 2000s, which you just got the review for, and that's going to be posted. The 800 is the bookshelf, and that's what I have back here is a set of 800s. And then, let's see which side we on. That's over there. So we got those, and I have an NS-2000 sitting on top up there.
Yep. So
what we did now for these speakers, the NS-2000s, just for reference, they're $4,000 a piece, so it's $8,000 a pair. The 800s are $4,800 for the pair, and those are the ones that were given away for the sweepstakes. So we couldn't afford to put pure Xylon drivers into these speakers, because even the 600s, that drops down to $2,800 for the pair of those. But we like the Xylon, we like the sonic capabilities of Xylon, so we had to get a little bit creative on how we were going to implement the Xylon. And what we came up with is we developed a blend of spruce, and spruce is the same material that's used inside our grand pianos, the giant soundboard down this 9-foot concert grand right here. That's made out of spruce. The tops of all of our acoustic guitars are made out of spruce. Sonically, spruce is like one of the best sounding woods that there is. So what we did is we took a blend of spruce and Xylon, and then we were able to mix that together and make our drivers for this series of speakers. And if you notice right here, these 3 drivers in the corner right here, these are for the NS-2000. That's the 3-way tower. And if you notice, the woofer, the mid-range, and the tweeter are all the same material. So now if you have a full spectrum sound, an opera singer from a low note to a high note, whatever it is, it's the same tonality. It's the same timbre at every frequency throughout the whole spectrum. So there's a huge advantage by being able to make your drivers out of a single material rather than trying to blend different types of materials from the tweeter and the mid-range and the woofers.
And these are purposely built drivers for the series, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, these are Yamaha only for this series. Here, let's do some show and tell right here.
Sure.
So I don't know. There it is right there. That is the dust cover. Here's the cone right here. It kind of looks like paper. It's a little bit heavier than paper, but it is, you just tell how stiff it is when you put it in the cone shape. There's
Right.
no flex to it at all. So it's very fast. And one of the things that they like, it's really fast and light, but it also does not ring. It's a very dead material. So if you run a signal through it or something like that, you don't hear the paper ringing. It absorbs the energy in the driver itself, so it doesn't keep ringing. So you get a pure sound out of the speakers. Now we got to go through some of the patented technologies here. We have a number of them. And again, this was all done for the NS-5000. The same thing is a resonance suppression chamber. And you can see we have a trumpet in the background, and we know how to make trumpets, and we know what all the tubes are in a trumpet or a French horn or something like that. We know how to tune all that stuff. If I show you this next image right here, and you can kind of see it's pretty small. Now, this is very common. Manufacturers do this all the time. Is you put some type of chamber on the back of the tweeter or the mid-range, and that chamber is to keep any back pressure from the woofer or the mid-ranges from affecting the dome of the tweeter. And when you put just a regular tube in here, the tube has resonances. And I'm going to show you a little graphic here in a second that will make it more clear. So let me see. Let's just go through it. Let me see if I can get to that. Okay, here, maybe you can see it from this graphic right here. You see in this tube right here, so at a certain frequency, this tube is going to resonate, and you're going to get high and low frequencies, the red and the blue, and they're going to swap ends at half waveform tones. If you look at what Yamaha does right here, we have this bigger tube right here, but when this tube decides to start to which it will, it'll resonate at some frequency. There is a frequency where that tube will resonate. But what we do is with these little side tubes that we have, these tubes that are on the side, when this tube starts to resonate, this tube right here along the side will vent that resonance in that center tube. And then eventually there's going to be a frequency where this tube on the right will resonate, and this third tube on the left will vent the high pressure and low pressure of the tube. So this is our Yamaha patented design. And the only way we could do this is because we know how to make musical instruments. We know how to deal with resonance on French horns and flugelhorns and brass instruments. You know, it's kind of a weird looking thing.
Yeah.
But you
see, that's metal, right? That's made out of metal.
No, it's plastic. It's just plastic.
Oh, it is plastic. Okay.
Yeah, it's nothing. It's just the plastic isolates the back of the dome from the tweeter from the rest of the cabinet. This tube right here will, when this starts to resonate in the center, this will vent it. And then when this one starts to resonate, this will vent that. And you get a much smoother pressure on the back of the dome of the tweeter. So you do not get any distortion from that. So
we have a couple of questions here.
Yeah.
Does this woofer material sound more like paper or Kevlar from a tone perspective? I imagine it's Kevlar-like.
It's more paper-like. It's like a real stiff paper because of the spruce. It is a paper cone,
right?
But it's reinforced with it's not as heavily reinforced as like a Kevlar would be. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah,
Kevlar would be more like a fiberglass. You know, they lay it up like fiberglass. You know, put epoxy on it and stuff like that. This is just that there's an Xylon fibers mixed in with the paper fibers. So I guess that would be my answer to that.
Gotcha. And then another one here is, has Yamaha always used their own design drivers in their speakers?
It depends on the speakers. We spec everything for sure. I mean, every manufacturer does that, whether you make your drivers or don't make your drivers. You spec how thick you want the surround, the compliance of the surround, the spider, how stiff you want the spider to be, how many windings you want in the coil, the impedance of the coil, the natural resonance of the driver. All that stuff is all spec. So there's like a whole sheet of specs when you're getting a driver. So in these are, you know, definitely are built by us, but the when you get into, you know, more production pieces, then it's more worthwhile to go to a company that specializes in tweeters and woofers and mid ranges and stuff like that, and you say, hey, I'm going to use this size cabinet. This is going to be the volume. It's going to be a sealed cabinet, and I want it to have these parameters.
Hey, someone wants to hear your opera voice again, Phil.
We'll see. Oh my. Okay, here's another patented technology. And this is Yamaha's Acoustic Absorber. And it is just this thing right here. It's just a cardboard rectangle tube. And this goes inside of the speaker. Let's see. And it is kind of ugly. Even the engineers laugh at it. They don't even like showing people just because it's not painted or anything. But it goes inside. Let's take a look at what this does. Is you can see in this speaker right here, this is the NS-800A. Off to the side, there's two of these blue J-looking tubes in there, and that's this acoustic absorber. And there's one for each side. When we get down to the NS-600s and the NS-800s, we have a little bit different. They're smaller, obviously. They're much smaller. So let me see if I can figure out how to explain this. Okay, so here's the cabinet right here on the left. At a certain frequency, this cabinet is going to resonate from top to bottom because we know the length, we know the dimensions of the cabinet. So whatever the dimension of this cabinet is real simple mathematics. We can figure out what frequency this cabinet is going to start to resonate. And from this picture right here, you kind of see I have a high pressure at the bottom and a low pressure at the top of the cabinet. Well, at resonance, that's only a half a waveform. The next half a waveform is going to flip over this way. So I'll have high pressure at the top and low pressure at the bottom. So it's going to be high, low, high, low, high, low inside the cabinet. Here's the problem with that. What's mounted inside the cabinet? That's your woofer. Your woofer is sitting there and it just wants to woof. It just wants to do its thing, get a signal and move. It just wants to woof and go in and out. But now all of a sudden the cabinet starts to resonate, and now the cabinet's putting pressure, back pressure on the woofer, and then kind of a vacuum on the woofer, back and forth and back as the cabinet resonates at that particular frequency, whatever frequency it works out to be. So there's a point where the woofer is actually fighting the cabinet, and that's at resonance of the cabinet. So the way we typically do that is we shove all kinds of batting material inside the cabinet, some fiberglass and cotton, whatever batting material there. That's the way it's been done traditionally, for 60 years. And there's some downsides to that because you lose some of the speed that the speaker can react to the electrical signal. So you won't get quite as accurate of a reproduction. So what Yamaha engineers wanted to do, they didn't want to fill it up with batting material like we've always done in the past. So that's where they developed these acoustic absorbers right here. And let me just play the video. I think I got a video for this one right here. Let's play this and let's see if this makes sense right here. So there they go in there. We got one with the tubes and one without the absorbers. Okay, now you see how the high and low pressure is swapping sides on the left-hand side. And then look at the back pressure on the right-hand side with the acoustic absorbers in there. Those acoustic absorbers are tuned at a frequency that is opposite of the cabinet resonance. So when there's a high pressure on top of the cabinet, those absorbers will kind of vent the high pressure down to the low pressure side and even out the pressure inside the cabinet. And then on the other half of the sine wave, flip it over, and it's the same thing in the opposite direction. So these two simple devices just do a spectacular job of evening the pressure inside the cabinet. So now we don't have to worry about all the batting material. We can have a much, we can deal with super low signals. We can deal with silence. We're not trying to push through at low signal levels, especially. We're not trying to push through all this batting material. It's just the cabinet and the volume, and then the acoustic absorbers.
These acoustic absorbers are in all 3 models for the NS.
Yeah, and I have. So, this is the one for the NS-2000s, for the floor standing ones. That's kind of the model we're looking at right here. And then this is the one for the 800. This is the NS-800. And there's actually 2 of them in there. There's one for the up and down, and then there's one for the front and back, because there's going to be, because every dimension is going to resonate at a different frequency. So it's not just one frequency that we're trying to take care of. It's all 3 dimensions that are inside a cabinet. Does that make sense?
Yep, I got you.
And since we're talking about woofers, I cannot go back to opera voice. Cross bracing. We do cross bracing, and you can kind of see there's an absorber there, and there's another one down here. And we do vibration control, and everyone does this. If you're a quality speaker manufacturer, you do this at some level. You have to have a rock solid cabinet, but we do it the musical instrument way. We use a laser vibrometer.
Yep.
And we use this for everything. We use this for musical instruments. If we need to know if that French horn, if the bell on that French horn is resonating at 440 hertz, or is it 442 hertz, which can make it out of tune. So with this laser device, we can look at all angles of the cabinet. The 5th foot on the Avantage receivers, Gene.
You did that in there.
You'll be happy to know that that's the laser vibrometer that they use to find the placement of the 5th foot in the Avantage receivers. So we use this on everything. Pretty much everything we make gets lasered to some point.
Right.
Components, we use the best components that we can find. We're using some Mundorf M caps for the crossover. And that's just good practice. Is use good parts, you get potentially good performance. This is another thing, another patented technology, and this wasn't developed from the 5000 series. It's used in the 5000 series. This is like a I'm thinking it's close to 25 years ago we first came out with this. It's called the twisted flare port. And let's see if I can get a little light in there.
Yep.
Not very much. You can kind of see the clover thing that's in there, but you can see from the picture down here, when this resonates, air is going to come out of the port. That's what happens. Air comes out, and at high volume levels, you get a thing called chuffing. You can actually hear the air escaping through the port right here, because it comes out, hits the static air that's outside, and it makes a rushing sound. By having this twist, this flare port that's got a twist to it, another patent, it's a patented technology. As the air comes out, it dissipates. So you do not get that chuffing. You don't get a focused puff of air. It spreads it out. Yeah, it kind of disperses it. So you don't get the negative effects of that chuffing that you're going to get. Again, this is just another Yamaha patented technology that we have in here. The rear speaker terminals, God, I just love these things. And this is the same.
They're really pretty.
Yeah, and they're big. They're big and they're brass and they're machined. And the reason we make them big is so you can tighten them down without a tool. With your hand, you can get a good grip. Yeah. Especially if you use a spade connectors or something like that, it doesn't matter how tight you tighten it.
Oh, I know. They fall off so easy.
Yeah. You come back, it's like, it doesn't even look like anyone even tried to tighten it.
I honestly prefer to use bare wire on the back of speakers and then bananas on the amplifier side. If
yeah. The bare wire is your best electrical connection by far. It's just not as convenient for some of us who are messing with stuff all the time and changing things out.
We got a super chat question here for you from Triple Lex. Gene, ask him if there's an affordable replacement speaker coming to replace the recently discontinued NS-800A.
No time soon. Let me put it that way. That speaker are variations of the 6490. We've been selling for 30 years, close to 35 years.
Yeah.
Different variations of it. And that's a good example of a speaker that we don't make those drivers. We buy those drivers from a company in China. And one of the reasons why they're discontinued is we cannot source those drivers anymore. But I remember when we were designing those, we designed those here in the U.S. and our engineers were based in the U.S. and I worked with them quite a bit at that time. It was really cool to see how we spec'd out the tweeter in the mid-range and the woofer. So actually, there's only like 3 parts for the crossover inside that thing. That's because we designed the tweeter to naturally roll off as the mid-range was starting to roll off. So the drivers were actually crossing themselves over without using external components. And that's why we were able to do, a pretty good performing speaker for a very low price.
So I noticed this too. It looks like the same connectors from the 2000 receiver, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's the same design. And the 5000s it's better when you get to do the M5000 because they're even bigger. They're another 1/4 inch bigger in diameter. And Gene, this is the last thing I think I want to talk about here. And this is the most important thing in my mind. Okay, Yamaha is a musical instrument company, and Yamaha makes grand pianos. So if you're going to buy a speaker that has a piano finish, where else would you buy it from other than Yamaha, the company that makes the pianos and makes the finishes on the piano? So when you buy a piano finish Yamaha speaker, it is truly a piano finish. It is a patented technology that we developed 120 years, a little over 123 years we've been painting pianos since right at the turn of the 1900s. So we have this piano finishing technique down with a hard polyester, sanding, priming, buffing. It's the same exact finish that we put on our $250,000 grand pianos. There's on these speakers right here. So they're
where's the factory that these are being made?
This is Malaysia. These are in our Malaysian plant.
Gotcha.
And that's a Yamaha factory. I mean, we built that in 92, I think it was, is when we opened that up there. And there's a bunch of reasons why we moved the factory over to Malaysia. It's actually, well, if you're interested, back in the 80s, the dollar and the yen were shifting quite a bit. And so you come out and you want to sell a receiver for $1,000. Well, all of a sudden, then the exchange rate changes. Now Japan's not making any money off of it. And then we're having to raise prices and all this kind of stuff. But the Malaysian dollar tracks the US dollar, or at the time tracked the US dollar. So we just moved our plants over there. So if it costs us $5 to make it in Malaysia, we could sell it in the US for $5. So that's kind of
right.
Sorry, we sidetracked a little bit. I always like giving out good trivia. So I think this is kind of the end of the road here, Gene.
Yeah.
Unless we got some more questions. We knew this was going to be a short and sweet one.
No, I think a lot of more details will come in our reviews because James Larson goes really in depth with the design analysis of the product. And I think people will get a really good perspective when they read his review, his subjective listening test, and then hear Shane Lee's perspective. So we got 2 different reviewers kind of giving their take on these speakers. I think that's really useful to our viewership. Yeah,
that's good because it's always, no matter what I'm researching is like, I want to see different opinions on something. And I think that's only fair. That's the only right way to make a decision on something is if you get it from different perspectives. And it's really cool that you're able to put this together to get us.
Sure. So question for you is, out of the 3 speakers, I guess this depends on the room size and all that stuff. But what's your favorite sounding speaker out of the 3? If you wanted to own a pair of these NS speakers, do you prefer the 2-way bookshelf or the tower? The bookshelf
the tower. It is so hard, and that's why I asked you if we could review the difference between the towers and the bookshelves. When we do the hi-fi shows like Axpona, we'll have all of them there, and I'll sit there for half a day. I'll be listening to the 2000s on all the vinyl and all the audiophile tracks and stuff. And I go, wow, these 2000s are absolutely spectacular. I'm in love with them. And then someone wanted to hear the 800s, so I put the 800s in, and I start listening to all that same tracks again, and they sound different. There's a difference between a two-way drive speaker and a three-way, because you got the extra mid-range that's in there. You know, just the physics of it, it's different. It's the same boy. Yeah, it's obviously the same brand and the same series of speaker. And for me, it's kind of what music I'm listening to. The 800s for sure are going to stay in my house here. The 2000s, they might end up out in my theater room at some point, but yeah, I kind of like the 800s for the room size that I have here.
Gotcha. And the stands, those are Yamaha stands. You could buy those.
Yeah, those are Yamaha stands for the bookshelves, the SPS 800s. I think they're $1,400 for the pair. They're nice stands. They're really real heavy, and they cosmetically designed. I think I got a picture of them here.
Someone's asking if there's any steel parts in the signal path.
Steel,
like the connectors or anything like that. But those are not. Those are brass, or what are they?
No, everything's brass and copper.
Yeah, I figured that.
Yeah, so it's brass, at the terminal itself, and then it goes oxygen-free copper internally, then to the crossover, which is all copper in the crossover itself, and then out to the drivers themselves.
Yep. Well, Phil, I think that pretty much gives us a good overview of the speakers. Guys, I want to remind you again, they are doing a contest at NS-800A speaker giveaway. If you're in the United States, all the links are down below. You have until January 31st at 11:59 p.m. to enter this contest to win. So make sure you do that, because we love giving away Yamaha products, and then you guys come back and give us your experiences, post on the forums. We love it when you send us pictures. Like I said, we just did the RN1000 receiver giveaway, and we're going to be announcing the winner on that in about a week or so. So the more times you guys enter these contests, the more we can give away these kind of products. So we really appreciate your participation.
Absolutely.
All right, Phil. Well, thanks for dropping the knowledge again. Guys, if you like this video, please hit the thumb up, hit subscribe. Don't forget about our Patreon channel at patreon.com/audiohawks. We appreciate your support. You get direct access to me if you want to suggest video topics. And until next time, my friends, keep listening.